Welcome to another DCS tutorial, and we're back in a Harrier. Today I'm going to show you an advanced tutorial on how to do iron bombing from altitude and against moving targets. I'm going to ease us in by showing how to attack a column of static targets with the correct bomb spacing. Then we're going to do the same with a moving column. And finally, we're going to see if we can hit a single moving vehicle without bombing half a city. I've also pulled together a custom knee board for you to use, which you will see in game. So, let's start. Okay, we're en route to our IP, and as usual, we're going to start by bringing up the T-pod. And then T-pod Hortus mode by depressing the sensor select switch twice. Then hit target designate on the MFD to slew the T-pod to the waypoints. Sensor select right long to go into IR mode. Sensor select left to change the field of view. And then we use the TDC and the zoom buttons to locate our targets. And there we have 8 vehicles. We're now going to bring up the 2D yard marker, and to do that we select data from the MFD and then 2DY from the ODU. I'm just going to pause here and run through some of the options that we have for the 2D yard marker. The UFC is currently showing 100, which is the default. This indicates that the 2D yard marker has a radius of 100 meters. ODU option 2 is currently showing :M. This indicates that it's measuring it in meters. Hitting this button will remove the colon but will stay as M, and this indicates that you're now measuring in feet. Buttons 4 and 5 increase and decrease the yard marker by 100. And we can manually input any figure which we want by using the UFC and pressing enter. And finally we need to activate it by pressing on. Let's have another quick pause and see the yard marker itself. The obvious thing we can now see is this ellipse. This is depicting the radius that we defined earlier to the T-pod's center point. This is the value that we set, which is 100 meters. Had we changed it to feet, this would now show 328 F. And finally, we have the reticle yardstick, which are these 4 lines. The number here is always in meters and corresponds to the length of the line. The horizontal lines are relative to the ground, however the vertical lines are relative to the height above ground. So here we could use the reticle to measure an 11-meter high building, for example, but we can't use it to accurately measure the length of a column, unless you move to the side of a column, go directly above it, or if you're very good at trigonometry. So what we're going to do now is adjust the radius of a yardstick to try and measure the length of that column. So 200 meters is too big. 150 meters looks about perfect, bearing in mind that we're looking at the back of the first vehicle to the back of the last vehicle. We don't want to get too far right, or too close, so I'm just going to set up an orbit here for now. So let's prepare our weapons. We'll start by going Master Arm on, Air to Ground Master Mode, selecting our Mark 82s, change the fuse to instant, and we're going to set the quantity to 8. The multi-release we're going to leave as 1. We're actually loaded with 12 bombs, but we have 8 vehicles and we're going to try and get direct hits. Here is a custom need board that I've created, and I can use it to convert meters to feet if I need to. As you recall, the radius of the column was 150 meters, which is a 300 meter diameter or 984 feet. And this table tells us that for a 300 meter drop, we need a spacing of 123 feet. So I'm going to round that down to 120 and enter it into the interval value in the armaments panel. I'm off to the right of the column already, so I'm going to turn hard and try and get myself roughly lined up with them. What we're going to do now is to target the back of the first vehicle, which is where the first bomb should hit. However, the Harrier has a tendency to drop long, so I'm going to aim a little bit short. Press TDC action when you are happy with the location. The T-pod will show T-pod Des, and this will set the target coordinates. And finally, we are going to turn on target when we are perfectly aligned. And we can use the top of the reticle yardstick to do that alignment. What we're trying to do is to essentially mask the targets behind this line, which proves that we're on the same vector as the targets. If the targets aren't all aligned, then you would simply pick the most suitable vector with the most targets on it, as we can see on screen. We are now perfectly set up, so we just need to follow the bomb queue line as closely as possible and watch for the countdown timer. I tend to hit pickle at around 5 seconds, but it doesn't really matter. But you must remember to press and hold until all of the bombs are released. Pickle. And release, and then we'll immediately break away. Let's watch our bombs coming in. And shack. That's 7 out of 8 kills, which is pretty impressive from 9,500 feet. Let's now do the same, but this time we're going to attack some moving targets. There are the 8 vehicles we attacked previously, and up ahead are 3 columns of 10 moving targets. So the procedure will start the same. We're going to click Data and bring up the 2D yardstick. And again, we're going to measure the radius. There's a couple of extra vehicles this time, so it might be a little bit bigger. 150 meters seems a little bit too big, so clearly these vehicles are a little bit more compressed together than the statics we saw earlier. 125 is a little bit small. 140 looks about perfect. As we have moving targets, we're just as likely to straddle them as hit them. So this time I'm going to drop all 12 bombs. So let's bring up the new board and calculate the release interval. The radius in the yard marker we set at 140 meters, so we're looking at a 280 meter column. The chart tells us that 300 meters needs an 82 foot drop. We only need 280 meters, which is about 77 feet. We'll have to round that down to the nearest 10 feet anyway, so we're looking at an 80 foot interval. So let's prepare our weapons with the usual steps, which is Master Arm on, Air to Ground Master Mode, select the weapon, then we'll prepare the weapon with Auto Mode, Instant Fuse, Quantity of 12, Multi-Release of 1 and an interval of 80 feet. Next we're going to look at the bomb fall times. We are going to drop from 10,000 feet, and for a Mark 82 that has an approximate fall time of 25 seconds. We're going to align the T-pod just ahead of the column, and when the column gets to the centre we're going to hit the stopwatch and count 25 seconds. Start. 5, 10, 15, 20, stop. We're going to pause again here and take a look at the T-pod. We can see that exactly 5 of the vehicles have passed through the centre of the T-pod in that 25 seconds. Therefore, instead of targeting the back vehicle like we did on static targets, we need to count forward 5 vehicles from the back of the column. It just so happens that we're halfway here, so we need to target the first bomb on the 5th vehicle. Had the column been travelling faster, then we might have had, say, 8 vehicles pass the T-pod, and in that case we would have had to target the 2nd vehicle. So, hopefully, when we drop the first bomb at the middle vehicle, it will have driven forward and out of harm's way, and the last vehicle should get hit. Well, that's the plan. So we're going to go into point track using sensor select down or OSB 20 and try and lock up that vehicle. And we have a lock. Okay, let's roll on to target now. We're only 6 miles away and nowhere near aligned, so I'm just going to turn around and get a little bit more separation. We're now at 8 miles, so that should be enough, so we're going to loop round and try our attack run. And it looks like we're almost perfectly aligned already. So we're going to do a point track again on vehicle number 5. The column is pointing slightly towards 1 o'clock, so we're going to fly a little left until we get ourselves perfectly aligned. If you don't have alignment by 10 to 20 seconds, you need to consider aborting the attack. That's looking good, so we just need to maintain that all the way in. I'm primarily going to concentrate on the bomb fall line, but also keep an eye on the T-pod to make sure that there is no drift. And at 10 seconds I will concentrate solely on the bomb fall line. Pickle. And release, and then we'll immediately break away. And Shack, 9 kills out of 10 vehicles. It's pretty good going. Remember, these are unarmoured targets. You're not going to have that level of success against heavy armour. If I were to attack heavy armour, I would probably drop in pairs, reduce the spacing, or possibly use Mark 83s. Okay, this time we're going to turn up the notch even more and try attacking a single target. We can't get a lock on a lead vehicle in this case, so it's far harder. And to offset that slightly, I'm going to drop 2 pairs of bombs. But you shouldn't really be expecting regular kills with this method, but you should be very close very often. I'm not going to go through the early prep as it's the same as before, so we're just going to jump in where we've set the radius on the yard marker to 150 meters. As before, we're going to time how long it takes a vehicle to get from the center of the T-pod to the edge of a yardstick, which is 150 meters. Start. 5, 10, 15, 20, stop. I'll bring up the knee board again and we'll take a quick pause. I have cheated here just for the sake of brevity. I already knew that 150 meters was the correct radius for this vehicle and that equated to 10,000 feet. Had I left the yard marker at the default of 100, it would have taken 17 seconds. We know that because from the figures we have, we can calculate the ground speed of the convoy is 6 meters per second. Conversely, If we wanted to drop from 16,000 feet, we can easily calculate that for a 34-second drop, we would need a 204 meter radius. We're now going to align ourselves with the vehicle vector once again, but this is also harder as we don't have a column to refer to. So we're just going to center on the vehicle and wait for it to move. It's tracking towards 11 o'clock, so we are going to move slightly to the right. Let's prepare our weapons as usual. So it's master arm on, air to ground master mode, select the weapon, and then prepare the weapon. And to prepare the weapon, we're going to use auto mode, instantaneous fuse, quantity of 4 and multi 2, so that's 2 pairs of 2, and an interval of 30 feet. We normally wouldn't use such small spacing or so few bombs, but I'm trying to show how precise we can be, but have a slightly better chance of a kill than with a single bomb. We're just going to keep tracking the vehicle like this until we're absolutely aligned with its vector. During this time, you should keep hitting TDC action, as the distance and time to target will be set to where you last pressed it, and the vehicle's constantly moving away from you. To get an alignment, I tend to use a narrow field of view to mark the target, and then go to a wide field of view to check its vector relative to us. And whilst we still need precision, we don't need to be quite as precise as we do if we were attacking a long column. At 30 to 40 seconds, we want to start thinking about zooming out from the target. And I have also changed the T-pod polarity, as sometimes a vehicle can be masked by the text on the display. We're now approaching the critical point in the attack, so we're going to have another quick pause. You can see on screen that the target is only 3 or 4 seconds away from crossing the line, but our aircraft is 22 seconds away from releasing the weapon. Therefore, we need to move the designation point forward a little. How much depends, but we probably need to move forward about 110 meters in total, but I prefer to move it forward in small increments. So what I want to do is try and keep the vehicle about 5 to 6 seconds outside of the drop zone until the release cue is about 5 to 6 seconds. Getting a direct hit like this is going to be very difficult, and it's made even harder by the fact that each time you redesignate, it takes 3 seconds to calculate the new position. But in reality, we should be dropping at least 6 bombs in a line with a 50-foot separation to give us around 300-foot margin of error. But we also need to take into account the damage radius of bombs we're dropping, which isn't very high. So it's no use having too large a bomb separation, as you'll simply straddle the target. Okay, let's carry on once again. 19 seconds, redesignate. 10 seconds. This is looking good. Pickle. And that is just what we're looking for. The vehicle's just crossed the line. We're 1 second from release, so we're going to be very, very close. If, however, we were going to release more bombs with a longer interval, we would want the first bomb to land short, and hopefully subsequent bombs would straddle the target. The more bombs you have, the less precise you need to be. So let's carry on. release, and then we'll break away. It's looking promising. And shack, that's actually better than I expected. Once again, thank you for watching, and I hope that you've learned a useful skill today. Maybe you can create your own missions where you're limited to dump bombs against defended targets. So please do hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. In the meantime, I found this lovely little air base in Syria. The runway's kinda short, but it suits me just fine. The only problem is the Syrian Air Force and Army seem to be here. That problem solved. The only problem now is finding a glass to empty this barrel of beer into.